moving on to what was F18, now H2, diversity, equity, inclusion, professional development contracts with Goodenough Consulting, pulled by Councilmember Dennis. And do we have Ms. Matella here?
I believe she's online, but depending on the questions, we could probably handle them here. We try not to keep people late when we don't have questions ahead of time.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Dennis.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to not keep people late, and it's also important to have all questions answered. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is incredibly important. It's one of the priorities of the city. And what I've asked before with other projects is looks like in this particular, where's my paper, or here, we are using a consulting firm. So I just wanted to ask questions about the competitive bidding of this firm, consulting firm, and then why, if we have already staff who are specialized or who are designated to work with diversity, equity, inclusion, why are we not doing this in-house and instead spending the $96,000 for this this consultant to come in? That was one of my main questions.
I guess I can start off. I don't see Ms. Matella.
She is available. Ms. Matella, would you like to start or would you like administration to?
You can begin. I'm sorry, I was having trouble with my button here. Are you able to hear me okay?
We are, yes.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Councilmember Dennis. I think the first part of your question, yes, certainly equity work is really important. It does support some of the foundational principles that you set ahead of quality services, as well as a foundational principle of social equity. And I will note, from the inception of our city many, many years ago, this is the first time that we had a role similar to mine. And in that initial audit in 2021, we talked about the initial scope of work, which was scoped up 5 years. So it's an insurmountable amount of work in a really short period of time. And so this work that a consultant is doing, both in the professional development space as well as in the equity audits, is a supplement to the work that I'm doing. And in addition, so that it's an additional resource. It doesn't negate the volume of work that I have in my scope and in the work that I'm doing, but it adds value. And particularly in the space where we're having an audit, having somebody who's external, who has done audits with other organizations in different spaces, brings in really diverse experience from the audits that they've offered in other spaces. They're also able to bring best industry standards based on the equity audits that they're doing in different places, the practices, but also it allows us to pace our work much faster than I would be able to do on my own if I was to audit every department. Our organization is incredibly large. We do very, very diverse work. And so, certainly I could audit, but that might take us 10, 20 years to get to the space that we might be able to get to in 5 years, which was the hope when I first scoped this work. So I hope that answers your question, to note that it's a supplement to the work and not diverging it to a consultant altogether.
Thank you. No, I am incredibly impressed by your work. And I know that the broad scope of what diversity, equity, inclusion entails, that, it's very important to get outside thoughts. But to go to the audit, I agree. I think every department in every place in our city should be audited. So I'm a big fan of outside audits that have no financial ties to our city, to network. But my question is, like, with competitive bidding, to make sure that this consultant or other, people who are, doing this work, that it's the best financial investment for, we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And then also work with diversity, equity, inclusion. There's so many, like, I went to a lot of trainings, and I hope all of my colleagues have gone to several trainings. There's so many different ways of training. So if I'm getting this correctly, with do we pick the consultant based on?
Should we put a motion on the floor, or we just? I want to get. Do you want? Can I put a motion on the floor?
Oh, please, yes, yeah.
I move approval of the 2 contracts for the diversity, equity, inclusion with the selected contractor.
All right, Councilmember King gets the floor back, but I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, again, I don't mind if there's a question, but we just seem to be talking and not asking a question, not having it answered, and moving ahead with our business. So I'm trying to move this along, put a motion on the table, and then we ask our questions, and then we move along.
Thank you. My question, and I know sometimes I do, jump around a little bit, because that's how my brain processes neurodivergently, but I do appreciate focusing on, my question is, for competitive bidding, are we getting, using taxpayer dollars in the most efficient way possible, and are we looking at all the ranges, and how are we picking which consultant is doing this work, because there are so many varieties of ways of teaching and connecting to this important subject.
Council President, Councilmember Dennis, this is a professional service, so that's different than competitive bidding. We go and look for the professional service that would align with the goals. So when this started, I believe 2.5 years ago, there was a thorough process looking at what the necessity would be for the city to go through and have as many teammates as possible through the same training so that there would be consistency. So there was an initial process. It was not competitive bidding because this isn't a construction project or a deliverable. It is a professional service. So we meet the requirements there by getting quotes and clarity from different vendors that provide similar types of services, but they are generally quite unique in this space. And we also have a discount because we've continued working with this group. And there's also the intangible value of having them come to us so that our cohorts don't have to travel and miss any work. And just the value of being able to have the same consultant both experience our teammates and understand the questions that are getting asked, as they then also inform the JEDI audits that happen within the departments. So there's direct value. The purchasing is followed through quote process that is for a professional service, which is not competitive bidding.
I appreciate that. I'm sure this consulting group is wonderful. I have the full faith that they have been chosen for reasons that are great. I'm just saying, if we don't look at every single purchase through the lens of can we do better for the taxpayers, then we can't, find funding for things like
We do
schools.
look at all of the purchases in that way.
Okay,
That
that's what I was
would be better.
If this was competitive bid, we can look at purchase price. Thank you.
Thanks.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, Councilmember Dennis, you pulled F19, contract